So, bonjour, dear viewers from around the world. My name is Benoit Charlebois. I'm an alumnus of Pearson College from the class of 1984. And I'm currently the Pearson's Director of Alumni and Community Engagement. And I'm absolutely passionate about uncovering how the experience lived on campus has translated into people's life after Pearson. So today I'll be exploring just how Sue McDade's life was transformed from a monolingual teenager from New Brunswick, Canada, aspiring to become a lawyer at the time, to a fluently bilingual international development expert, women's empowerment and advocacy champion, single mom of two, and now a management consultant and leadership coach. Welcome, Sue.
Hi, thanks, Benoit. Thanks so much for having me.
You and I first met on campus almost 40 years ago, as you were a year ahead of me. And since we've met twice, about a decade ago to celebrate our 30-year reunion on campus, and more recently in 2015 over coffee at the foot of the UN headquarters in New York, where an organization you joined in 1991 and have since very recently retired from as Assistant Administrator and Director of the Bureau of Management Services of the UN Development Program. Sue, let's start from the beginning. Tell us about your connection to PC, how you found out about it, how it went, the selection, your first impressions upon arrival, and the 2 years, and how you've stayed connected.
So I didn't know anything about Pearson College. It was complete good luck. In terms of one day I heard an announcement on the loudspeaker in my high school. I went to public high school outside of St. John, New Brunswick. I did very well academically, but I was pretty bored. And the announcement said there were applications for a scholarship available to Lester B. Pearson College of the Pacific on the west coast of Canada. So without actually talking to my parents, I applied. And they were pretty surprised when I got invited for an interview in Fredericton, New Brunswick, which is the capital of my province. They were supportive. They took me. I did the interview and I did not win. I was number 2. And Yves Savoie got the scholarship from New Brunswick. And I was very lucky that a second scholarship was opened up and I got it. And then going to Pearson College was, for me, life-changing. I came from a wonderful community, but very mono-ethnic, monolingual. Everybody looked like me, sounded like me. All of our families are related for many generations. And there were very few immigrants from other countries. So just getting to an environment where there were kids from all different countries and hearing languages spoken that were different than my language was really exciting for me. And really, I thought everything was interesting. Like a lot of kids, I was a bit overwhelmed, but it also opened up for me a bigger world and the possibility that I could be part of something bigger than where I came from. And I probably wasn't thinking about it any more strategically than that when I was 16. But a life-changing decision was inspired by my roommate, Adriana de Leon from Uruguay, who, when I was doing IB course selection, thought that it would be a good idea to study Spanish. Her argumentation was many more people study Spanish than French, and many more people in the world speak Spanish than French. So at the ripe old age of 16, I decided to study Spanish, and I did higher IB Spanish. And it changed my life because I went on to work in Spanish, to be the Secretary General's representative in 2 Latin American countries, to work in a 3rd, and ultimately in UNDP to be the Deputy Director of the Latin American Bureau. So I had a career very much focused on Latin America, although I held functions in other countries as well. So I can absolutely say that Pearson College changed the path of my life and also opened me up to many possibilities that, frankly, I probably wouldn't have thought about had I not gone to Pearson College.
In fact, Sue, tell us more about some of the other life decisions that you've had to make that have some kind of connection to the experience on campus with roommates, for example, and housemates, and the campus community. so the residents, the teachers. What has that made a difference in terms of your family, your community, your profession, your work?
So I came from a very loving and supportive family, but from an environment where I didn't have any role models of women who worked outside of the home. Everybody was a stay-at-home mom that I knew, and going to Pearson College to see strong, determined women that had opinions and careers and independence, that was very important for me. I had the blessing to know Theo and Eileen Dombrowski, who at the time were my house fellows, and have since become lifelong friends of mine, them, their children, but over now 40 years. Adriana de Leon, the roommate I referred to, I later became the UN resident coordinator in Uruguay. So I was appointed by the Secretary General to be his sort of ambassador in Uruguay. And that was amazing to have a lifelong friend there who knew me from when I was a kid and helped me in so many ways when I was there. But more than the individual personal connections, I think Pearson College just helped me have an interest in social justice on a broader scale. I was always very driven by social justice, equity, fairness kind of issues. But the values that we talked about in the Max Bell Hall, in village meetings, hearing kids from different countries debate about dictatorships, freedom, justice, fairness, things that I hadn't been exposed to on that level, directly influenced what I wanted to study in university, how I saw the world, and were really a big influence on my whole career in the UN.
So just behind me in the background, we have a painting that was made by Theo Dombrowski. So small world. And what about the impact? And we've heard some of that, that the UWC values have had on your leadership style. You were just interviewed by the International Office of the United World Colleges about your involvement in women's empowerment. And in fact, I invite our viewers to click on the web and find that profile written up on the UWC website and also in a brochure on women's empowerment. But tell us, how has your style of leadership been impacted?
Well, I guess you'd have to talk to a lot of the people that I've been the leader of. But what people always say is, although I can be very direct, I'm very demanding, I have high expectations, everybody always will comment on the fairness, the ability to listen and to be fair. And I would have to say that fairness has been a very overriding thing for me as an individual, as a manager, and as a leader in the UN. I mean, obviously the UN Charter, the values of the UN, the human rights based focus is driven by fairness. But in leading people and teams, fairness is also about maybe listening to the one that doesn't talk, trying to involve people that aren't the loudest or the flashiest, and in making decisions, taking into account a diverse set of opinions. And the very powerful thing that I think I probably thought about first or learned the most about in Pearson College and then have done my whole life is to place myself in the chair of the other. How is the other person experiencing the situation? How do they see it? What do they think of whatever is being discussed? What do they think of me? What do they think of the UN? What do they think of whatever is being negotiated? What's in it for them? What are they not going to like? And that ability to place yourself in the chair of the other and to try and think empathetically, still critically, still analytically, but from a sort of 360 point of view, I think that came from Pearson College, not because I knew how to do it when I got there, but we were pushed to do that. We were pushed to try and think from other people's perspectives and see would we make the same conclusion or a different conclusion. And that was very powerful for me. And I would say that now, as a management coach, that trying to place yourself in the chair of the other is really one of the things I talk to people a lot about. And in terms of women's leadership, I think very often people think that women in leadership positions is about getting the numbers right, getting that quota, getting the 50-50. And it's really not. It's about getting a set of behaviors and thinking and interjection that might be just more diverse than if everybody is the same, either the same gender or the same sort of world perspective. And when I talked to the international office, one of the things I talked about was when I entered the UN, the senior most field positions, of which there's about 140 UN representatives who are called resident coordinators. There were literally 6 that were women. And in the agency that I worked in, all the bosses were all men, were mostly from the north, and it was noticeable. And during my time at the UN, thanks to the leadership exercised by both men and women, I was lucky that it changed, and I served under some very strong women that were role models for me. But I've also seen men that championed this, not because it was a numbers game, but because they really believed in it. They believed in it from a management point of view, and they believed in it from a results point of view. So the current Secretary General is very committed to this, and the previous Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, also was committed. So I was lucky that I served in a period that there were women who were mentors, women who had been prime ministers, vice presidents, leaders in their own country, and men who also understood that this was important to get a better organization and better teams and better results. And so now I spend quite a bit of time focusing on that and also supporting the younger generation women as they prepare to take on more senior positions in the UN.
And finally, on a more personal note, Sue, as a parent, as a single mom, you've just made a big decision of going full circle back to New Brunswick.
Yeah.
And how would you say that UWC and your life's journey has impacted your mothership style?
So I very much feel like I'm a citizen of the world, and I want my kids to be citizens of the world. But I also want my own children to know where they came from, to have a sense of place, a sense of rootedness, a sense of origin, and the values that come from growing up in a small community. Where people help each other, where if your car gets stuck in the snow, somebody will come with a shovel and help you out. If you're sick, somebody's going to drop off food. And if you're old, somebody's going to be around to talk to you. And so I made a decision that although I had a big job, a lot of responsibility, I had 2 kids who were teenagers and going to be in university in a couple of years. And I really thought, I'm going to miss them so much if I don't have more time to spend with them. And so I made a decision that I'm lucky to be able to make, because I'm fairly young to retire, that I wanted to be full-time with them. And I had great childcare my whole working life, which I think is essential for working women. But, the nanny's not your mom. And so I am so happy to right now be retired and be home full time with 2 kids, one in grade 11 and one in grade 9. And they'll go on to do whatever they're going to do, and they'll live wherever they want to live. My kids are very international kids because they grew up in different countries, but they're always going to have a sense of what it means to be Canadian, what it means to be from a place called New Brunswick, a town called Rothesay, and a family of the McDades. And I think that's just, in my experience, very important for people to have a sense of origin without it being determinate or defining or limiting on what you can or cannot do or be or say or think. So I'm lucky that I had that as an opportunity, frankly, partly because of Pearson College. And I think those values are important. So I don't think it's a dichotomy. I think you can be from a small town, have small town values, have a sense of place, but still be committed to the bigger world and to be part of something bigger than you. And that bigger, in my case, was the UN, but it could be lots of other things. And like I say, I don't know what it'll be for my kids, but I think working women also give up a lot if you sacrifice the time with your kids. And I was in a very senior position in which I was doing a lot of international travel. And I felt I was missing major milestones or major events that my kids were having. And you mentioned that I'm a single mother. That also, frankly, was something that I'm lucky that I could do, but that would not have been plan A. The international career is very hard on individual relations. And I reached a point that I was more committed to being a mom than to anything else. And I'm lucky that I could have my kids because I had them at a fairly ripe old age. But, I've faced the trade-offs, and that's something I talk to other women and men, because it's not just women that have the trade-offs. But at the end of the day, in this period of my life, I decided I'd rather be full-time mom to 2 teenage kids than to be the assistant administrator of UNDP. And for me, right now, that was the right decision.
So thank you very much, Sue, for your willingness to open up, your candor, your wisdom, and for telling us all about your life after Pearson. Thank you so much.
Happy to do it, Benoit. Thanks so much.